Another week, another trophy review. Welcome back to episode 13 of Plat'n. That we have another profile in this absolutely mad streak of killer accounts here with Skip'em. Skip'em's account is about 4 years old, so about the same sort of age as my own in Symmetry. Their first trophy was in God of War, with their first platinum being, you would think I'd have researched this, God of War. So I could have probably guessed it and been fine, but yeah, so our accounts are actually quite similar ages, so I'm going to find this quite interesting to go into and sort of see similarities and differences. There's one big difference that I've seen so far. Skip'em knows how to complete games, whereas I know how to skip games. See what I did there? Anyway, before we jump in, I'm going to plug the Platinum Standard Discord, a Discord for trophy hunters to talk about all things trophies, organize your boosts, talk about your own accounts, put your own account on the list so that I eventually review it, all that fun stuff. And without any more further faff, let's jump right in. Alrighty, and we're getting the ball rolling with A Plague Tale: Innocence. So this is a game I've talked about several times on this series. It's a really good one. It's essentially an escort mission the entire time where you are taking your brother to, I believe, a cure from memory. You've got the whole great rat plague and all that sort of stuff sweeping through France. A lot of the trophies are sort of scenario based, so getting past some guards without initiating combat, upgrading your equipment, all the fun stuff that you get in a adventure game. Highly recommend it though, it's very good. I'm looking at the PS5 version and I'm going, maybe I'll add the stack. Way Out is next. This is a game where you are breaking out of prison with another person. The two of you sort of have to work together to overcome different scenarios and all that fun stuff. I haven't done this one yet either because no friends. I know there's a few people who have sort of put their hands up to do this with me. Thank you so much for when we eventually get there. I just have so much of a hefty backlog between then and now. But this is another absolutely fantastic one. Very similar to things like It Takes Two or the We Were Here series. Amnesia Rebirth, this is part of the Amnesia series. This is not the visual novel, I don't think, but this is a more puzzle-based one, I think. I don't think Rebirth did very well from memory. I've played the others. I actually have the Platinum for the collection, so the first game, Machine for Pigs, and whatever 1.5 is called, Catherine? Is it called Catherine? It might be called Catherine. But this one sort of just came out and didn't really do anything, so I've never really got to it. I don't know what Arise is, actually. This is the first one on the list that I'm actually not too sure about. Someone will have to tell me in the comments what this game is so I can get it right for next time. But it is a 30.45%, and you did smash it out in less than 3 days. So good game. Looks like good game. We're now getting into... It's finally, we've had a streak of accounts where my dear and beloved series Assassin's Creed has been neglected. Looking at you, Banana Sausage, get onto it. But we finally have a hefty Assassin's Creed collection here with Brotherhood done in a week and 4 days. I'm actually doing Brotherhood right now. I actually stopped playing to record this video. I'm on the I think it's mission 1 of sequence 4, where you've got to get into the Castello undetected, and oh boy, is it not fun. I forgot how rough that mission is, but the rest of the game is absolutely phenomenal. If I were to recommend an Assassin's Creed, I think Brotherhood on PS4 would be the one that I recommend. Obviously, I would not recommend the PS3 version because the multiplayer is shutting down in about a week. I think 6 days, if my quick math is correct. I bet it's not. Then we've got the Trilogy Pack 100%. For those of you who don't know what the Trilogy Pack is, these are the sort of spin-off series, the side scrollers. One is set in China, one is set in India, and one is set in Russia. They're interesting. The trophies are kind of poo. There's a lot of trophies for beating the entire game without being seen, beating the entire game without killing anyone, essentially not being an assassin. But the gameplay itself is quite fun if you like side scrollers. The art style is really unique. It's just if you were to buy them all standalone, they don't have a platinum trophy. They're all just 100%, but you can get the trilogy pack here, and it does have a platinum that is at 9.55%. We then have Assassin's Creed 2. This is kind of like a given on many people's accounts. The PS3 version was a lot of people's first platinum trophy. I think it's one of the first for me back in the day as well. I actually did it on the 360 as well back when I was an achievement hunter. I know, don't unsub. I've changed. I'm a changed man. But Assassin's Creed 2, obviously, the start of the Ezio trilogy, fantastic game. We've then got 3 on the PS4. This was one of my most miserable experiences doing trophies. I think actually we worked on this around the same time. I think if I were to look at my account, I was also the end of March 2020-ish. Off the top of my head. I'm now doubting myself, but I think I was around then because I remember doing it on my birthday because that's a way to spend that. It's probably the weakest Assassin's Creed in my opinion, besides Odyssey. Odyssey hardly even being an Assassin's Creed game. There's no assassins. Come on, get it together, guys. But 3. The gameplay is really cool. The story's pretty good. Connor gets a lot more crap than he deserves. He's actually a fairly good character. But those trophies, like the frontier challenges and stuff, are just miserable. And I remember the DLC being fairly lacking as well. You've then got Liberation that you smashed out in 4 days. This was the sort of tie into 3, set in the same sort of region, being America. It's not in the same area of America in that I believe Liberations is in New Orleans from memory. It's got a really cool thing where it's got the persona system where you have a bunch of outfits that you can wear, and those outfits give you different benefits around different groups of people. If you wear the formal lady outfit, then you can sort of get through very high-end and fancy areas, whereas if you wear like a poor person, rags, you can get through the docks and stuff like that, and guards won't question you, whereas they'll question why a woman in a dress is knee-deep in mud, for example. Cool game, very, very short, very, very sort of basic, but it was an Assassin's Creed that sort of tried, and that's unique these days. We then have Odyssey. This is a glitch. This game doesn't actually exist. We then have Revelations. Revelations being the wrap-up to the Ezio trilogy, set in Constantinople. Fantastic game. Probably the most forgettable of the Ezio trilogy, all 3 being absolute heavyweights. But I think the reason that Revelations is forgotten is purely just because Brotherhood came out the year before and was phenomenal. And then the year afterwards was Assassin's Creed 3, so there was a lot of hype and build-up and release trailers for that, and everyone was really excited for what that was going to bring in America. And so Revelations just sort of came and went in between and was kind of just filler. But it does a really good job wrapping up Altair and Ezio's stories. You get a lot of fun trophies. There is the crappy tower defense game because this came out in 2013 and we needed crappy tower defense games and stuff. But very, very fun game. You're then following it through with Rogue. Rogue being the game that came out originally PS3 exclusive when Unity came out on the PS4. They came out on the exact same day. This was essentially Black Flag, but in the North Atlantic from memory. And it was fun. There was some twists to the story that I won't spoil that were very unique. The trophies were essentially Black Flag, but with icebergs, which was kind of fun. Black Flag having, in my opinion, the best trophy list of the series. And yeah, Rogue was very much the same sort of thing. If you liked Black Flag, you would like Rogue. Unique features, some of the things like the enemy convoys and the combat challenges were unique, and I don't think we saw in another entry in the series. We then have Syndicate, which it's Assassin's Creed Unity Lite. It essentially took everything good from Unity and dumbed it down to the point where that is now what the series is these days, with Origins through Valhalla. Syndicate, I think, would benefit heavily from just having Evie Fry. Don't have Jacob. We don't need him. He smells funny. We don't like him. He's got the weird... He goes into stealth mode and puts a top hat on, which... Don't know about you, but if I crouched and chuck a top hat on myself, I think I'd look more suspicious. But yeah, it was okay. Very bog standard trophy list. I remember the destroying 5,000 objects with a carriage being rough. I remember that not popping correctly, but otherwise fairly good game. And then we've got Unity to wrap up the Assassin's Creeds here. This is Arno. This is heavily underrated. The game obviously released and was a buggy nightmare. If you play it now in 2022 or onwards, if you're watching this in the future, hi future me. It's a good game. The bugs have been mostly fixed. You might see a graphical one here or there, but it's mostly been fixed. The story's incredible. I really like the multiple routes to an assassination. Say a dude is in a church, you might be able to go through the catacombs, you might be able to go through a window that's being washed upstairs, you might be able to do a little side quest where you help a lady in need and she helps you through the back door or something like that. I don't know, but there are different routes and all this sort of stuff, and it sort of led to a lot of replayability. I think it led to variations in the execution cutscenes as well, which was kind of cool. And yeah, it's a hell of a way to round out the Assassin's Creeds that we have here. I remember the multiplayer being fairly cruisy. You could do a lot of the multiplayer by yourself, you know, the multiplayer missions and stuff you can do solo very comfortably. The only thing that's a pain is I think it's revives and 10 co-op kills. I remember when I did it, I didn't boost it or anything. I just joined random people's games. And I just stood behind guards and patiently waited for the other person to cotton on to what I was trying to do. And it took maybe an hour or two to do, but definitely didn't sour a fantastic game. Alrighty, following Assassin's Creed Unity, we have the Arkham games in Arkham Asylum and City. City being, in my opinion, my uncertified, uncredible, completely unknowledgeable opinion, because I've only got Asylum, and even that was trouble for me alone to do. I would say City's probably the hardest of the trilogy. I would definitely say skip them if you were going to go back and do it. You can probably smash it out if you've got the 100% in City, because some of those challenge maps in City I've heard are rough, very, very rough. We then have both Telltale Batman games. There's not much to really say about these. These are essentially just decision-making simulators. You're going through some interactions with other characters and doing a little bit of talking. I didn't think either of these was particularly special. The first one's okay. The second one I literally can't remember anything about. It's got Bane. And that's the extent of my knowledge. Beyond Two Souls is next. This is a David Cage game. I'm assuming if we're seeing this one, I can near put money on seeing Detroit Become Human and Heavy Rain as well. We then have the Bioshock trilogy, which is that's awesome to see, and I think that's continuing a streak here, because I think the last few accounts, obviously Banana Sausage had every Bioshock stack under the sun, but I think every single account that we've seen so far for about 5 or 6 weeks now, I think has had all 3 Bioshocks. So the first 2 games are Under the Sea, and then the third one is Up in the Sky. The third one's DLC, very crap. I'll say Burial at Sea, not a big fan of. The Challenges map is even worse. I hated that one. Thankfully, the Blue Ribbons trophy, you can do a workaround where it just auto pops. If you do all of the other trophies in that DLC, and then you do all of the trophies in the rest of the DLCs, that'll pop as your last trophy, kind of like a Platinum would normally for some reason. Definitely makes your life easier there. But these are very fun games. I actually really love the first 2. Infinite's kind of... it's okay. 1999 mode's not really that difficult at all, save for like one boss fight. We then have Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. This is a game I actually need to do myself at some point. It's interesting that you did it in 3 hours. I didn't know that it was that fast, so maybe I'll jump onto that in the coming months then, if it's that quick and easy to get out of the way of. Call of Cthulhu, this is one of two Lovecraftian games that came out pretty much at the exact same time, the other one being The Sinking City. Call of Cthulhu, Sinking City's more open world investigation kind of stuff. Call of Cthulhu is definitely a lot more linear. It's got some hubs, but the hubs are more sort of just a couple of buildings and some people to interact with. This game is fun. You will be doing a few playthroughs just because you've got to invest in skills that lock out other skills and stuff like that. I had a trophy glitch, so I think if you're efficient, you could do the game in 2 playthroughs, or it might be 1.5. I know it took me 2.5 playthroughs to get some of those trophies because some of them just casually decided not to pop, and now I'm sad again. Someone hold me. This is a tough time. We then have Concrete Genie, which is our first not 100%. The reason that this isn't 100% is the 3 trophies that are the DLC that you can see there. They require VR, so I know you're paying, skip them. I know you're paying because I'm in that boat myself. Concrete Genie is a lot of fun. You play as a kid who can draw monsters on a wall that come to life, and you are trying to essentially beautify and breathe some life into a town that has become heavily industrialized and grey and barren. Very fun game though. I really liked that the gameplay took like a complete 360 in the last act. That was not expected, but very welcome. Control, you play as a lady who has rocked up to the Bureau of Paranormal Investigations, I believe they're called. Just as like a quarantine breach has happened, so the whole place is being taken over by supernatural stuff. You'll be floating around throwing concrete at corrupted security guards and all that sort of stuff. Very, very fun game. If you liked Alan Wake, you'll like some of the references and throwbacks in this game. The trophies I remember being a bit butts, but you do get to hunt down and slaughter paranormal vending machines. So there is that. We then have Cyberpunk. So skip them. You'll have to tell me, is Cyberpunk worth playing yet? I know you played it pretty much a year ago. A month from a year. So you'll have to tell us if that's worth playing, because obviously this game absolutely tanked when it first came out. I was very hyped for it personally. I played about 15 minutes and then stopped. So you'll have to tell us if it is any good. I'm also waiting to see if they do any big boy DLC with that game at some point. We then have the Darksiders trilogy, no Genesis. The first game is like a Metroidvania of sorts and is phenomenal. Highly recommend the first one. The second one takes elements from Skyrim and makes the first game worse. There's just an entire section late in the game where it becomes Call of Duty. If it's not obvious, I'm not a big fan of Darksiders 2. And then the third game is like a baby's first Dark Souls. Not particularly difficult, but the combat is fairly good. I like Darksiders 3. I know a lot of people had issues with it. I thought it was actually probably the second best of the 3 I played, and then like you, skip them, I also haven't done Genesis. I should probably get around to that because it is on PS Plus Extra or whatever that is called. We then got Days Gone. This is open world zombies. It won't get a sequel apparently, which is a shame because the game's very good. The trophies are very cruisy. You don't even have to get all of the collectibles. I think you need about 65%. So you should, by the time you're done, probably have a good chunk of them, and then it's like an hour to clean up. The hordes in this game are phenomenal. There is something very satisfying about fighting 100 zombies at once and trying to like manage your resources and all that sort of fun stuff while staying alive. The DLC sucks. And I assume that's the reason the game took you a month to complete, because those DLCs are rough. They're essentially time-based multiplier score / time attacks. The worst trophies in trophy hunting. In a game that is not designed to be fast and arcadey, so it sort of doesn't work in my opinion, but you've smashed it out to that 100%, which is very impressive. And you can see the jump in difficulty when the platinum is nearly 30% and the 100% is not even 1.5% complete. We then have Death Stranding. This is a large apocalyptic game where you play as the guy from Walking Dead as a postman. Never really stood out as appealing to me. I'm sure I'll get to it at some point, but you smashed it out in 3 weeks, so that's actually pretty impressive. We then have, like I said, the second we saw Beyond Two Souls, I was pretty confident that we would see Detroit Become Human. I'm not a big fan of this one personally. I sort of think it is very dripping with too much. It sort of just needed to say what it meant to say and just get on with it. Clancy Brown is obviously phenomenal in it, however, so that's kind of worth a playthrough in itself. The trophies are pretty much multiple playthroughs to collect magazines, which is miserable. We then have Dishonored 2 and Death of the Outsider. Dishonored 2 is interesting. So Dishonored 1 is obviously beloved by a lot of people. Awful DLC. I can near put money on that being the reason why Skip'em doesn't have this on the list. Skip'em, do be free to correct me if this is not the case. But that game has awful DLC, like genuinely bad. There's things like killing all of the enemies whilst they're fighting one another, and if they kill one another, then the trophy's void. There are enemies that can one-shot other enemies. It's miserable. Dishonored 2 then came out, and it kind of just came and went, like no one cared. The same thing for Death of the Outsider, to the point where I don't even really know what Death of the Outsider is about. I like Dishonored 2. I need to platinum that myself at some point, but I also need to get around to Death of the Outsider, so you'll have to tell us if that one is worth playing. We then only have 2 Far Cry's here, with Classic Edition and then Primal. Classic Edition being Far Cry 3, but without the multiplayer that was on the PS3. Primal being the Caveman one. Classic Edition, very, very good game, very enjoyable. Primal being fairly forgettable in all honesty. The setting's pretty cool. Some of the melee weapons and animal riding and stuff is pretty cool, but once you sort of get over that initial honeymoon phase, that game very quickly becomes collectible-thon, and you spend half the game looking for little blue skill point icons on a map. We've got Fee. This is another one that I don't know too much about outside of it being a side-scroller, but I've heard very good things. It's another one that I do want to do at some point myself. Forgotten Anne is one that I've never heard of, and I think is the first time we're seeing in this series. So I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are on that, perhaps. We then have Telltale's Game of Thrones. I say it every week, but I think that this would have been better had it been at a different point in the book. On a side note, Dance of Dragons, episode 1, pretty good, highly recommend. We then have Ghost of Tsushima, just the platinum, maybe. Hold on, I think you might have done... You've done one of the DLCs. You've done one of them, Skip'em. I'm curious, is it Ishi Island or is it the raid? I'm gonna say you did it 2 months ago. I'm gonna say you've done Ghosts of Ishi Island and it's the raid left. Let's have a look. Let's open this bad boy up, and we'll scroll down. The base game's obviously complete. The raid you've done, you've completed a mode story, which I think is what I've done too, and you've done New Game Plus in Ishi Island. Okay. Wow, there's more DLC than I thought there was. Does that really have 2 lists? Ishi Island's got a story list and an exploration list. I did not know that. That's interesting. So Ghost of Tsushima is essentially Assassin's Creed with samurai. I will never understand people that like Ghost of Tsushima but dislike Assassin's Creed, given that they are literally the exact same thing. Now, I will say Tsushima does have, to its credit, a really good combat system. If you see an enemy with a shield, you're going to have to use a different attacking stance than a guy with a polearm, for example, and that's sort of very flexible. But the exploration, the millions of collectibles, the side quests, the climbing, that is all Assassin's Creed in a nutshell. But it is a very good game. Actually, one of the rare games that I bought day one, I think, or close to day one. I do need to do all of the DLC myself. I haven't done Ishi Island or New Game Plus or any of the raid stuff really at all. If you want to do the raid stuff together, let me know. I would definitely like to knock that off my list at some point myself. I'm sort of going back through and doing a lot of cleanup on my own list at the moment, and stuff with old multiplayers, such as Resident Evil 5, for example, are things that I'm sort of prioritizing. We then have God of War 2018 and Remastered, the two that are on the PS4. I'm assuming your account is entirely PS4 based on what we've seen so far. 2018 was a big change from the original trilogy and spin-offs, those being side-scrolling beat-em-ups that are fantastic. This game is also fantastic, but yeah, very, very different, very slow. Still very much looking forward to Ragnarok, however. I will say the trophy for collecting all of the green ravens, no thank you. The ones on the lake took me ages to line up and throw my axe at whilst I was on my little boat with boy. Anyway, we then have Gravity Rush 2 and Remastered. I've talked about these in depth. These are ones that I would like to do at some point that I believe single-handedly carried the Vita for a hot minute. We then got Greed. This is like a side-scrolling artsy sort of game is how I've heard it described. I remember the fellas from Plat'n being fans of it from memory. I've heard good things. I should definitely get around to Gree at some point, or Gris, or however it's pronounced. Heavy Rain, I told you. I can see into accounts, and I can predict things. I knew the second we saw Beyond Two Souls, we'd see all three. Heavy Rain is probably my favorite of that trilogy of David Cage games. Millions of endings, there's like 14, but it is definitely the most interesting of the few. Jason! That is forever burnt into my brain. Please tell me I got the name right. Hellblade: Snow Sacrifice. This is a game that tackles a lot of mental difficulties that people can have. It's sort of an interesting way that they do it. She can hear voices in her head and see things that might not necessarily be there. I really want to actually play this and see how they tackle it, because I find that I think it's a very difficult thing to pull off that often isn't in gaming. And so I've heard good things, and I do want to see if it does live up to those. 41.41% though, that's an interesting completion. It's also very high. So I'm guessing the game is just play for it and get the collectibles, based on that completion rate. We then have Zero Dawn at 100%. You haven't done Forbidden West. This makes this my favorite account because I haven't had to look at that game. Zero Dawn, very, very good one. The good one of the two. Nice open world, fun to fight robot dinosaurs. The collectibles aren't too over the top. There's characters in this game. The main character is likable. All big things that were thoroughly changed for the sequel. And Rust is obviously Bay. We then have Immortals Phoenix Rising 100%. Now, that game hurt. I was not a fan of Immortals. It's think Assassin's Creed meets Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's interesting. I thought the strength of this game was in its storytelling, the narration between Zeus and I believe Prometheus, I think was the other one there. I'm probably wrong. But the narration between the two people telling the story was really well done. The game is colorful. The combat's fairly fun, not gonna lie. But I found some of the puzzles, they were fun, but they went for too long. You would be in a puzzle challenge and you would become aware that you'd been in there for about 20 minutes, and it was only really fun for the first 5 minutes, and then it was just kind of like, oh, I'm doing what I worked out at the start for the 12th time. There's a DLC entirely to that, and that DLC was so miserable and so boring that I actually put the game down for like 6 months, and I only cleaned it up a month or two ago myself. The last DLC was interesting because it's kind of an isometric exploration sort of one, and it was actually pretty good because you didn't have too many puzzles. But yeah, Immortals is okay. I would say it's the perfect definition of a 5 out of 10, like just that perfect middle ground of It's got some good, it's got some bad. We then have First Light and Second Son, two staples in this series so far. First Light being the arena combat-based one where all of its trophies are getting high scores and killing dudes, and then Second Son being the open world one, much like the traditional Infamous games with the first and the second one. I like Second Son a hell of a lot better than First Light, to the point where First Light, which is really only like an 8-hour platinum, took me like a year. But they are pretty fun games, and I do like, I'll use my PS5 controller as an example, but I like how in Second Son, they use the controller as a spray can, so you gotta shake it up before you use it, which was a really cool use of the early PS4 controller. We then have some beefy games here with Injustice 2's 100% in only 2 months and 2 weeks, which is kind of crazy. And then Injustice Gods Among Us Ultimate Edition as well, which there's a reason it has a 0.18% completion. That is a crazy hard game, and you have smashed out the bulk of it. In fact, I am curious, what do you have left? So for those of you who don't know as well, Injustice Gods Among Us is like the DC fighting game, I guess it is. You've got two characters and they're throwing punches at one another like this. Very, very hard. There's a lot of stuff like completing the battle mode here, which you can see is a 0.26% on PSNP. Very tricky. Same with the beating the stars lab. Reaching level 100, I think you can... Rainer in the Discord could probably correct me, but I believe you can AFK boost that? I'm pretty sure. I think you can leave that AFK. I'm sure Rainer will correct me if I'm very, very wrong. And then you just have all of the Star Lab with 3 stars. So if the first time wasn't hard enough, now you've got to perfect it, which easier said than done, but seriously impressive that you've got 46 of 51 trophies. That is, if I was wearing a hat, I would take it off till you skip them. We then have It Takes Two. Like I said with A Way Out, this is one of those absolutely fantastic co-op ones where you've got to play with another person to overcome different obstacles and challenges. Very, very good game. I believe this was Missing Collectibles Game of the Year last year. So if you care about award shows, that's the most important one. Shout out to them on YouTube. But very, very fun one that I've seen people play that I really want to do myself at some point. And moving on from It Takes Two, we have the first Kingdom Hearts game here with 3 weeks and 1 day, this being essentially Disney meets Final Fantasy. These games have some very beefy and grindy trophies from memory. We then have Knack 2, which I believe is the one without the RNG chests. I think that's the first game. Knack is like an adventure game where you're just collecting stuff, including different upgrades for your big character that you can see in the thumbnail there. Can you tell I haven't played Knack? We then have LA Noire. This is a police drama made by Rockstar, set in the 1950s through to the 60s. You play as Cole Phelps, who is a detective, solving various crimes that sort of sometimes overlap, sometimes don't. The trophies are very, very cruisy, in all honesty. Things like getting all the investigations correct and stuff, which you can follow a guide for. The trophy for collecting all the cars is a bit of a nightmare. I remember some of those cars and their spawn rates are rough. Like some of them just flat out don't spawn. But very, very good game, and definitely one that I would 110% recommend to play. Lara Croft Go, this is the Tomb Raider puzzle game. Essentially, you're essentially just sliding tiles around with Lara on them to get trophies. It's relatively quick, it's relatively easy, hence the 77% rarity there. We then have DC Super Villains is I was going to say the only Lego game. I'm wrong. There is some beefy Lego games right here. But DC Super Villains, make your own villain, explore the world, get all the collectibles. This is definitely in the generation of Lego games where bloat is the goal. Not to the extent of Lego Star Wars. I don't think anything can beat how bad that one is. But DC Super Villains is pretty grindy. We then have Lego Harry Potter 1 through 4 and 5 through 7. These are good Lego games. This is back when they were genuinely very enjoyable. Hogwarts is a lot of fun to explore, and that's coming from someone who doesn't really care about Harry Potter. So at a base level, the games are quite fun, and then if you're a fan of that universe, obviously you'll get more of a kick out of it. We then have Lego Jurassic World, pretty mid-tier, and then the Lego movie video game and Ninjago movie video game. I know nothing about Ninjago. I think you're a ninja. The name kind of gives that away. And then the Lego movie, the video game, is the one based on the movie that's based on the building blocks that are not based on the video game. They're okay. That one's kind of, again, just a bit of a nothing one. I think in terms of Lego games, after like the Lord of the Rings and the Harry Potter, they sort of have been on a decline ever since, where things like Lego Movie 2 and Star Wars The Skywalker Saga are just awful. So it'd be nice to see them turn it around at some point. Obviously, I missed a Lego game there too. Lego The Hobbit is there as well, and this is another one of the beginning of the end, in my opinion. We then have Life is Strange's, and we have quite a few of them here, with Life is Strange 1, where you play as Max, Life is Strange 2, where you play as Chloe, and then the first game you play as Max. The second game you play as a dude. I'm not entirely sure his name because I haven't actually played 2 yet. And then Before the Storm is the one where you play as Chloe. Of those, obviously I haven't played 2, so I can't really judge it too hard, though I haven't heard great things. I think Before the Storm is probably my favorite. I know that is definitely the underdog there, but I think overall in terms of this series, True Colors is by far and away my favorite. And then there's a bit of a jump for Life is Strange Before the Storm, and then a little bit more of a jump, Life is Strange, and then 2 I can't really rule on. We then have Mad Max, which, as you can see there by the exclamation mark, is unobtainable these days. So congratulations on the 100% there, Skip 'em. Very, very good game. It's open world with Mad Max from the movies, but it's got Arkham series combat, which is kind of cool. Very good mix. Very, very enjoyable game. It's a shame that Platinum is unobtainable, because it's one that I would love to do myself. The server's closed, which means you can't do some of the challenges for scrap, and you need scrap for a trophy. So it's a rough one. I do know that Platinum was notorious for glitching on people as well. Things like certain scrap wouldn't load into the world and stuff, so you weren't able to pick them up and would have to do entire new playthroughs. But you smashed it out in only 2 months, and you did it a while before the server shut, so congratulations there, Skip 'em. We then have the Mafia Trilogy, 100%. Mafia 1, phenomenal game. The race on Classic is rough. I remember I was going in like for half an hour every day for like a week and just trying to have some little attempts, and then when I got frustrated, I'd put it down. And then I just randomly got it like first try. I remember coming home from uni. I think I had an exam or a presentation or something, and I came home and then just casually smashed it out. So that was a nice little reward to myself. But very good game. Mafia 2, another very good game. I think the base game in Mafia 2 is phenomenal, in all honesty, but the DLC sucks. That Jimmy's Vendetta just in general is rough, but if you've watched the 8 trophies that made me sad video, you will know all about the trophy for 1,000 miles, where you just fall through the map for about 12 hours and pray that the game doesn't corrupt or crash. And then Mafia 3 is, again, very, very forgettable. This one was very repetitive, I think, between each story. You had a story mission, and then you had about 4 hours of like going around a district and breaking stuff to then be able to unlock the next mission. It got repetitive quick, which is a shame, because Lincoln was a great character. You can see that the trophies are apparently unobtainable. There's no multiplayer, so I'm kind of unsure about that. I believe it's tied into the Ratchet trophies being heavily glitchy, so Don't quote me, but I think you might be able to obtain those. They're just, you've got to be aware that they are highly volatile in terms of glitches. We then have some Guardians of the Galaxy in the Marvel game and the Telltale game, the Marvel one being action adventure, the Telltale game being a Telltale one where essentially you're just watching some interactions and making some decisions. The first one there, the Marvel one, is pretty good. I thought it was good. The combat's boring. You won't want to fight anything because it's push one button or win essentially. But the interactions between the characters is absolutely fantastic, and I thought that the environments were really, really good. Again, I'm not someone that really cares about superheroes, so I wasn't really going in thinking much. It was kind of just a fodder Platinum, but I ended up really enjoying it. And then I haven't done the Telltale one personally, but if you like Telltale, you'll probably like this. We then have Spider-Man and Miles Morales. Same deal, open world, you play as a character, you get all of the collectibles, you do all the missions. I've played the first game there, very, very fun. A very good entry Platinum. You know, if you wanted your first Platinum, this is a really good spot to start. I've heard very good things about Miles Morales. I actually have the game downloaded. I just haven't got around to playing it because I'm sort of trying not to add too many new games to my account at the moment. It's a struggle, I tell you. I'm looking at Ghost Recon Wildlands and I'm just like, soon. But yeah, I've heard very good things. If you liked the first Spider-Man, I'm sure you'll love Miles Morales. We then have the Mass Effect trilogy and the 100% filler-in tie-in thing that ties all three games trophy lists into one. I think most of the trophies in this here are very much just kill-based trophies. Another series I've actually never played. I've never played a Mass Effect, but these are, think Dragon Age in space. You're in charge of a large party of crew members. You're making a lot of decisions that have impacts on the story later. You know, you might make a decision that decides who allies with you in the final battle and stuff like that, and the trophies reflect those. You have runs on the hardest difficulty, a bunch of, you know, certain amount of kills, all the fun stuff, really. I've heard very good things. Another series I need to polish off myself. Medieval, this is a remaster of the classic PS1 game where you play as an undead warrior who is brought back, who must save a princess or something. I can't quite remember. I was a wee lad back when I played that on the original PlayStation. We then have the Metro trilogy here, which I love to see. We actually had this again on Banana Sausage's account last week as well. Phenomenal games. Exodus is a little bit of a weak point. So the first two games, 2033 and Last Light, are both set in the metros of an apocalyptic and highly radioactive Russia. And very, very good games. The trophy lists are a lot of fun as well. And then Exodus is kind of more open world. You've left the tunnels, you're on a train. So Peter, probably your favorite game. But yeah, you're on a train, you've got a lot of open world stuff. My biggest issue with it, I guess, was it just didn't feel like Metro. Like, Metro was always close, damp tunnels, you know, claustrophobic. There was a lot of horrors that you couldn't see in the dark. And you then take that and put it in the daylight in a swamp, and it sort of takes away from that a bit. The DLC I've heard good things about. I've done the first one where you're back in the tunnels. I thought it was phenomenal. And then Sam's story I've heard good things about. So I should probably clean up that last DLC, to be honest. I should probably make a note of that. But congratulations on that complete series there. That is another really impressive one. Another one here is the Middle of Earth games, both 100%. So the first one, Shadow of Mordor, a bit tricky. You essentially play as a man who has been stabified, that has merged with a ghost and is now building his own orc army to challenge Sauron. The DLC in Shadow of Mordor is rough. Some of the things like the hunt is my mistress, I think it is called, where you've got to beat the whole thing in a certain amount of time while capturing all the war chiefs and wearing a tutu is very tricky. You know, you sort of you have to plan some of those a fair bit. Definitely one that I need to go back and clean up. And then Shadow of War, in my opinion, was a complete step back from the first game. Absolutely butchers Tolkien's lore, which hurts. Can't wait for the Amazon series to do the same thing. But yeah, absolutely butchers the lore, adds stuff for the sake of it, gets rid of stuff for the sake of it, turns a giant spider into a hot lady because that makes some sense, yes. And the trophies are pretty rough too. So this was a game that had a lot of controversy when it first came out because it had loot boxes. It was a fully single player game. I think you can fight other people's bases or something if you want to, but no one's doing that. So it was a 90% single player game with loot boxes, and the end game, which was designed to force you to spend money because it was so long and grindy. They have since reduced that after the backlash towards the loot boxes, but it'd still take you a good 6, 7, 12 hours of capturing the same forts over and over again, and that's where it lost me. Another one I need to go back and clean up myself. You smashed it out in 4 weeks, though, so that's pretty impressive. But you can see, you can see that Shadow of Mordor took Skip'em a week, whereas Shadow of War took 4 weeks. And I would assume the end game is the reason. We then have some Mortal Kombats in 11 and 10, 10 being unobtainable here, with 5 trophies you can no longer get, and a very impressive 1.56%, so congratulations there, skip them. These being kind of like the Injustice Gods Among Us, where you're fighting, only not with superheroes. Murder Soul Suspect, I think I see this every week. I think I say this every week as well, in that I've played this, and I have no recollection of it. You would think after seeing this for like 13 weeks, I would have looked into what this actually was. No. We then have the Ni no Kunis. These are JRPGs that are very Studio Ghibli inspired in terms of the art style and stuff like that. Very long. You're capturing monsters and using them in your party as well. Kind of like Pokemon. The only thing I really know is that the first game, Wrath of the White Witch, has a really dark opening. I remember seeing that on a YouTube channel years ago, and that's sort of standing out as a game I've always been intrigued by, but probably will never get around to. The Nier games, these are kind of hack and slashy, Souls-likey, anime-y, JRPG sorts of games. A lot of people love them. Not really my kind of thing personally, but you've absolutely smashed these out. Version 1.22474487139 is a very impressive 100% right there. We then have some Personas with Dancing in the Moonlight, Persona 5 Dancing in the Starlight, a lot of dancing. Skip them. You've got to tell us, what do you do? The cha-cha? Is it I can't name another dance. Ballet, perhaps? Geez, that took me far too long to work out another dance. I'm tired. It's been a long day. But congratulations on those 100% there. It would definitely be interesting to see if you wanted to go around for Persona 4. I'm sure 4's got a dancing one, right? Is it like dancing in the sunlight? Geez, I'm grasping at straws here. I need to move on from the dancing. I'm cursed to be cringe on it right now. We've got some Ratchet and Clanks with the 2016 movie tie-in / reboot. Pretty fun game. Got rid of a lot of areas from the original, so that kind of sucked. But the game itself and the trophies are all easy. I remember there being one that's missable, where you've got to make every enemy in the game dance, and there's some tentacles that are only in one spot in the entire game. So if you're going to play this, be aware of that. A Crack in Time is where they go back in time, believe it or not. And Into the Nexus is one I haven't played, so I couldn't actually tell you what that one actually is. We've got some Rayman Legends. This is the side-scrolling platformer by Ubisoft, where you play as a yellow dude with no limbs. Very, very good game. I remember playing the original Rayman way back on like the original Xbox from memory. So, geez, that's making... I had hair back then. That's how long ago that was. We've got Rise of the Tomb Raider. So I can near put money on us seeing Shadow and 2013 at some point. But Rise, in fact, I can see Shadow just there, so I've spoiled that reveal. But Rise of the Tomb Raider, awesome. I would say that this is probably the middle child in terms of quality in this series. The time challenges and the score attack modes are the only things I've left personally. I hate doing those in games, so maybe I'll go back to them at some point, maybe not, who knows. Probably not, spoilers. But this is a game that I'm also semi-cautious of, purely because I do know that Square Enix did sell the rights to Tomb Raider to someone else, so this game does have multiplayer and does have servers, so maybe one to do before those shut, as Killzone Shadowfall proved last month, or this month. Servers can shut very rapidly and suddenly, so maybe one to look into. Sea of Solitude, I've never heard of. There's 3 boats in the picture, so it can't be that much solitude in it. We've then got Shadows of the Colossus. This is a large open world game where you run around a world and climb very large monsters, and that's kind of it. The trophies are pretty rough in this. You've actually done a really good job getting this done in a week. Like a seriously good job, because I know that the game has multiple playthroughs, multiple difficulties, multiple speed runs, multiple collectible playthroughs where you've actually got to do multiple runs to get all the collectibles. There's a lot of playing this game for that platinum, and to have that in a week is awesome. Skip them. We then have Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the weakest of the trilogy reboots. Not much to really say. This game's kind of just climbing. That's all you do. I think there's like 6 combat encounters in the entire game, which is kind of hilarious when half the trophy is combat encounter trophies. So you sort of just make a save, knock them all out of the way, and then just move on with your day. Very forgettable, and I didn't like the way that they concluded the mysterious organization. We then have Sherlock Holmes with Crime and Punishments and The Devil's Daughter. I've played one of these. I've played The Devil's Daughter is the one that I think I've done. These are they're sort of like Telltale games where you're exploring an environment and solving crimes and stuff, but they're good. Like I really enjoyed the one that I did play. I know that there's an Agatha Christie game on PS Plus Extra, I think it is. That is another one that I'm looking into doing myself. Maybe skip them. That is one that you would like to do. If anyone has actually played that one, do let me know in the comments if it is worth playing, because I do have it eyed up. It's on my to-do list. We then have Sleeping Dogs, which in my opinion is one of the best GTA clones. This is set in Hong Kong. I got it right this time. I hope you're all proud of me. The emphasis on melee combat is fantastic. The DLCs are rough. The DLCs in this one are another one where they're kind of thrown together combat challenges and timed things that didn't really work, but they're easy enough that you can knock them out in like a day. The base game, however, is phenomenal, and it is devastating we never got a sequel. Soma is another amazing game. This is one where it's like a exploration horror game. You're in a suit at the bottom of the ocean trying to discover what happened in a facility and trying to work your way out of it. If you wanted a more detailed synopsis, Mert KK, a trophy hunter creator on YouTube, did a fantastic retrospective for the game. Do go give that a look into, because that's going to explain it a hell of a lot better than I can. We then have both South Park games. Phenomenal. South Park, turn-based games. One of them is grid-based, one of them is just your traditional RPG turn-based system, one of them is medieval setting, and one of them is a superhero setting, but they are both very, very good. I think I prefer the Stick of Truth. They are kind of rough in terms of trophies, just because there are like half the trophy list in both games is missable, which is kind of annoying, so you've sort of got to have a guide up at all times, but they are very, very fun games. We then have SpongeBob. This was free on Plus earlier this year. This is a remaster of a PS2 game that is essentially just a collectathon. You're going around Bikini Bottom finding spatulas and stuff like that. We then have all 3 Spyros, more collectathons from our childhoods that have been remastered. You're playing as the purple dragon, saving the other dragons and all that sort of fun stuff, and collecting gems on the way. A series that I really need to get around to doing at some point, because as you can see here by the 4 days, 5 days, 4 days, you can absolutely smash these out in no time at all. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. In fact, we've got 2 absolute banging Star Wars games here, with Fallen Order being the Dark Souls clone set after Episode 3. You are a surviving Jedi that goes and receives the last little bit of his training, essentially. Very, very fun game. Dathomir and some of the planets to explore and get all the collectibles is a bit rough. You're gonna be sick of going to the map by the end of the game. And then Republic Commando is a remaster of the original Xbox and PS2 shooter, where you play as a clone commando squad. It has the most brutal cliffhanger of all time, in that, you know, we've been waiting like 20 years for an actual sequel. The game is phenomenal. I would definitely say if you see Republic Commando for cheap, do pick it up, because it is fantastic. I adore that game. And then to round out the S's, we have Stray, which is one that I did a video on this channel. So go give it a watch. Once this video is done, get some popcorn, go watch the Stray one. It's good, I pinky promise. You play as a cat, you get collectibles, you escape a robot city. That's all there is here. It's okay. It's heavily praised because you play as a cat. Look into the game at any level beyond cat, and it's any exploration game really, but it's fun. I didn't mind it. It's nice, it's quick. And the trophy for getting through an area without getting caught by any of the Zergs or Zorgs or whatever they were called can be pretty rough. Those little homing bastards are rough and very RNG based, but I do have my successful route and the way that I did it in that video. There's a section where there's like a right angle. I know you can't really see it in the camera, but I'm going to flail my arms around anyway. There's like a right angle where they drop down from the immediate left, and I found that the only way to get past, personally, was just come to a complete stop, let them drop down, and then run past them. Otherwise, they would drop and jump and like home in on you. It was a rough time. Righty, next up we have Tales from the Borderlands. This is another Telltale game set in the Borderlands universe. Go figure. It's pretty good. I like this one. It's got a cool heist. But if you've played one Telltale game, you've played literally all of them. The Council, funny enough, isn't a Telltale game, but it's a Telltale game. It's the same thing. You're watching cutscenes, I believe. I could be wrong. I know it was released episodically, which is my logic behind my decision to say this. But it is, yeah, you're watching interactions and you are deciding the outcomes, and that affects story beats down the line. We then have a couple of the Dark Pictures Anthology here in Little Hope and Man of Medan. It'll be interesting to see if we have the last one at some point. These are essentially Telltale games. You are going through different interactions, making decisions that are affecting story beats later in the game. I know Man of Medan has a trophy to play the whole thing in like couch co-op, or just co-op in general, where each of you has control over a different character and their actions, which is an interesting way of doing that. I actually want to play Man of Medan at some point, another one that I have downloaded. But the rest of the series sort of, I've heard The Quarry's pretty good, but I remember watching on stream the last of the Dark Pictures Anthology, and it just didn't look great. The Evil Within 2, very, very good game. I think it is a step up from the first. The trophy list has a higher, so the first game has an ultra rare plat. I would say the second would too. However, you can activate cheats to be invincible, which obviously trivializes the difficulty. The open world sections in the Evil Within 2 are very, very fun, however. The Order 1886, very short cinematic game where you play as one of the Knights of the Round Table hunting down werewolves, and there's one vampire for like 2 seconds. I liked it. A lot of people don't. It's a very conflicted game. But I think for what it did and what it set up, it's a shame we never saw anything else from that IP, because I actually thought that the setting was a really, really cool one. The Outer Worlds, not to be mistaken with Outer Wilds rather. I got it wrong. I'm shamed. I'm forever shamed. The Outer Worlds was made by Obsidian, the guys behind Fallout New Vegas. You're going to a bunch of different planets. You're doing a lot of side quests. It's Fallout in space. I've heard really good things. I do want to play this one, actually. This is one that I should do at some point, because I've owned Outer Worlds since it came out. And I think I own the DLC. But I've just never got round to it. I think I was a bit burnt out after Fallout 76. So maybe that's one for me to get round to. The Raven, this was a game that another fellow trophy YouTuber, Trophy Pop, recommends, and has since been on my watch list as well. I believe this is kind of like a whodunit where you're an investigator trying to work out some stuff. Much like The Sinking City Below, which is the second one of those Lovecraftian games that I was talking about before with Call of Cthulhu, where Call of Cthulhu was more linear. This is quite an open world one. It's got some really cool concepts where to say you've uncovered that there was a burn victim. You go to the hospital to find who that is by using the medical records. You might then go to the library with their name to find where they live, like in an address book. Very, very interesting way of doing some of that stuff. Combat's a bit poo, but otherwise I actually think The Sinking City is a fantastic game. Definitely one I would highly recommend. And it's had some legal issues. I know the devs were claiming it as their own, and the publisher was claiming it as theirs, so it was taken off the store for a bit, and there's a whole lot of legality around the game, but I know it is back on the store and definitely one that is worth picking up. The Walking Dead, the Telltale Definitive Series. This is all of the Walking Dead Telltale games. Like the rest that I've described, you are playing through interactions, making decisions that affect story beats down the line. You know, you might decide not to give a dude some cheese, and then 14 hours later he needed that cheese to get a fish to survive, and now he's gone. Very cool. The Wolf Among Us is the same sort of thing, only instead of the Walking Dead universe, it's like a fairy tale crime drama where fairy tale creatures are being picked off one by one. It's interesting. We then have Thronebreaker, The Witcher Tales. This is the spin-off to the Witcher games, where I believe you play as the Princess of Sintra, I believe it is, as she travels and builds up an army. It's actually one I really want to do. I just have never seen it on a sale worth picking up. Do let me know, Skip'em, if this one is worth playing and what the trophies are like. The 26% makes me think it's fairly cruisy, but I would definitely be interested because it does look really good. It's a completely different art style. It's kind of like a side-scrolling, traveling the world, kind of like Total War almost. It's interesting. Tomb Raider Definitive Edition. Medkits, enough said. The strongest narrative of the Reboot trilogy, in my opinion. Very, very good game. Medpacks for like 12 hours of your life. Twin Mirror, I have no clue what this is actually, so if you do know, let me know in the comments. We then get into a chunk of Uncharted games here with 2, 3, 4, Drake's Fortune, and Lost Legacy. That's all of them on the PS4. Obviously, there's a couple on the Vita as well, but Skip'em's account is purely PS4 at this point. Very fun action-adventure games. Think Indiana Jones meets a serial killer, and then you have Nathan Drake. It's very fun. The set pieces are really good. I think if I had to rank them rather, I think I would go Uncharted 2 as number 1 because it's a banger of a game. Uncharted 4 at number 2. Lost Legacy 3-1. I think that's how I do it because I really like the first half of 3 with the bald guy. I might be a wee bit biased, who knows. But yeah, very, very good action adventure games, very cruisy trophy lists. You usually have some difficulty related ones, some collectible related stuff, some combat related stuff, and then a speed run as a fat donut Nathan Drake. So that's always very fun. We then have Unravel. This is the EA side-scrolling game where you play as a little man made of yarn. You've got a lot of no-death trophies in these. I know that the second game, Unravel 2, has like an ultra-rare platinum because it's actually legitimately really tough. But I've heard good things about Unraveled, and I know you can play it in co-op should you want to yarn up with the boys. We then have Until Dawn. This was the game that inspired the Man of the Medan trilogy, the Dark Pictures Anthology, rather. Until Dawn's good. You play as a group of college students who go back to the site of an accident that happened a year before, and some supernatural stuff goes down. You're making decisions and putting people in places that may have consequences in the future. It's a lot of fun. I would definitely say, of what I've played, this is the entry point. This is the best one. It is the first one. They had some good actors in it too. I know Remy Malik is one of them. That chick from Heroes is in here as well. I can't think of what her name is off the top of my head, but she's in here as well. Very, very good. Valiant Hearts: The Great War. This is actually what you've been working on recently. In fact, as of today, you just got that 100%, so congratulations, Skip'em. That's actually super impressive. What will your next game be? I am curious. Vampire. This is an interesting game that I think is actually also on another streak. I think we've seen this a few times now. Vampire is one where you play as a vampire doctor at a hospital in like 1917, I think it is. There's been an outbreak of ghouls and lesser vampires in London. The vampire hunters are out in full force, and you are trying to navigate the streets to try and work out who turned you into a vampire. The trophies are kind of balls, not gonna lie. There's a lot of not being allowed to feed on anyone, which is your way of getting XP, so you're always super under-leveled in the game, which really sucks. Some of those later boss fights are really awful when you are 15 levels below what you should be. But the game itself is a lot of fun. I did have, when I went back post-game to do a lot of cleanup, the game did kind of break, which was interesting. I've never seen a game break that hard until Deliverance the Moon did for me. But yeah, Vampire is one I would probably recommend if you wanted something fairly unique. Definitely worth a play. Watch Dogs, this is Ubisoft's GTA clone. You play as Aiden Pierce, you hack dudes, you hack cars, you have a nephew. That's the game in a nutshell, in all honesty. Watch Dogs is a lot of fun. It took me like 6 months to get into. I remember I got my first trophy and then left it for a very long time. But once I actually got into it, it was a very, very enjoyable experience, and definitely one that I would recommend. And then the last game on the list here is What Remains of Edith Finch, which, if anyone's played this is a phenomenal one. You are walking through an old and quirky house and reliving the tragedies and joys that a family experienced over several generations. It's very, very good. Definitely give this one a try, especially with the PS5 now having the game has a platinum. So, you know, if you don't necessarily play 100%, that's the version for you. Do go pick it up and give it a try. And that's the list. We've made it to the end. It's another absolutely fantastic one. We are on a absolutely crazy streak here of good accounts. Every account is better than mine with each week. It's crazy. But thank you so much for letting me look at your list, Skip'em. I hope that I've done it justice. If you would like your own list to be done, do leave it in the comments below or join the Platinum Standard Discord. You won't regret it. There's a channel in there that you can post your list as well. This has been Symmetry. I miss you already, and I will see you for episode 14 next week. Goodbye. I miss you. Bye.